I'm Beth Stevens, and I'm one of the artists who created this Chapel of Love, and Annie Sprinkle, my partner, was the other artist.
And Elizabeth, what do you do up at UCSC?
Oh, I'm a professor of art at UCSC.
And where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in the Museum of Art and History in downtown Santa Cruz, here in the lovely state of California.
And again, we're in the Chapel of Love, which you created a month ago, was it? Or?
Yes, I created this about a month ago with Annie. We created it together. And it's a site-specific installation for this show, which is called All You Need Is Love. And so we were approached by the curator, Susan Hillhouse, to do an installation. And Susan had a moving wall partition that was shaped in the shape of a big triangle. And so she cut a door into this triangle, and our chapel is actually inside this movable wall partition. But the wall partition, the inside, of course, had raw studs, those aluminum studs, and there were screws sticking out and all of these things. And so Annie and I really weren't quite sure at all what we were going to do, but we were rummaging around at a place called Scrapped SF in San Francisco, where they sell scraps to artists. And we found these beautiful bolts of fabric, these beautiful bolts of pink satin and these creamy laces. And it's really not my usual MO to go sort of after satin and lace and things like that. I mean, really it was the kind of material that would mostly be found in an old lady's underwear drawer, perhaps. But it just was so incredible, and it was free. So we got this material and started playing with it. And so we I don't even know how to. We enfolded the interior of this triangular mobile wall unit here with this draping pink fabric and lacy fabric, and it's very feminine. And some people have even said that it looks quite vaginal, which I think is just hilarious. It's like bring back the vaginal art from the 70s, right? And we made a really kind of beautiful space in here, including a disco ball. We have a disco ball, and we have 7 monitors, which are showing various weddings from our 7-year project, which was called the Love Art Laboratory. And so all of the weddings, except for the last few that we did in Spain and the one we did in Bernal, are represented on these monitors. And there are rose petals on the floor. And it's really the first significant piece that we've done since the Love Art Laboratory, which was our 7-year piece, since that ended. So this is one of the first, compilation installations that we've done about that piece.
And how long will this show be up here at the museum?
The show's up until July 28th, so it's got a good long run, and I think lots of people are going to see it. And the whole show is excellent. It's an excellent, wonderful, fun show. So everyone should come down to the Museum of Art and History and see the show All About Love.
All About Love.
All About Love. And they have sort of love installations in the stairways. They have a wonderful Joan Brown painting show upstairs. It's this little museum is doing a lot of great things. It's a wonderful place.
I love it.
Yeah.
So tell me about some upcoming events.
Oh wow, we have a lot of upcoming events that are happening in the month of May, right? A very exciting month of May. On May 23rd at 8:30 p.m. at UC Santa Cruz at the Porter Dining Hall, Reverend Billy, who's from the Church of Stop Shopping, is going to be coming in, and he's going to be doing a sermon about Earth Justice and Occupy. And he is sure to just, get your blood flowing and really, strut his stuff in terms of art and activism and, debunking sort of fundamentalist myths by using the sort of persona of a fundamentalist preacher. And after his performance, which will probably be 45 minutes to an hour, then his partner, Savitri D, she's going to join him. And they're going to have a question and answer session afterwards. And Billy and Savitri, they have just been going all over the place, really putting their bodies on the line around issues of Occupy and public space and, environmental justice. I mean, Annie and I worked with Billy a little bit in West Virginia. And then, of course, Billy was our preacher at our wedding in Los Angeles when we married the moon. And that wedding's on these monitors, okay? So Annie and I married the moon because the moon was bombed by NASA looking for water. And, this ties in with us to West Virginia because we are activists who are against mountaintop removal, which is a horrible mining technique that's practiced in West Virginia, where they literally blow the tops off of mountains, right, and then push the dirt into the valleys below, destroying all the water sources. And so our wedding in Los Angeles, where Reverend Billy was the preacher, was premised upon the fact that if they'd stop bombing mountains here in the United States and ruining the water that way, then we wouldn't have to bomb the moon to get water, right? And can you all imagine the world without a moon? I mean, this last full moon was just so phenomenal. This supermoon, did you see the supermoon? It was just incredible. But if we keep bombing the moon, we won't have a moon, super or otherwise. So Billy's going to come tell us all about it at 8:30, May 23rd at the Porter Dining Hall. And it's free and open to the public. And we all need a good sermon now and again.
And you are listening to Elizabeth Stevens talking about her work. Now you got a big, but before we go on, the name of the performance is Occupy the Earth and Justice.
Occupy Earth and Justice, yes. That'll be Billy's sermon.
All right, now,
Yes.
You got a big deal, big, May 26th.
All right, well, May 26th, we are going to come occupy the Museum of Art and History for 14 hours, or is it 16 hours? It's either 14 or 16 hours. On May 26th, the Museum of Art and History is going to be hosting a project that I'm doing with some of my PhD colleagues in UC Davis. And they're coming down here, and we're all going to perform together at the Museum of Art and History for the entire day of May 26th, from 6 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. at night. And this is including these incredible colleagues of mine, Nita Little, who is an internationally acclaimed contact improv dancer. She's going to be finishing her PhD dissertation in public, so you can watch her finish that. It's like watching someone have a baby. Then the Thingamajigs musical group, which Zachary Watkins, who teaches at UC Santa Cruz, and Dylan Bowles, who is a phenomenal musician who makes his own flutes, and some other members, they're coming down here to perform the 16-hour musical piece, which is going to be backing up Stephen Ratcliffe, who's been writing one poem a day for 1,000 days. So he's going to be reading his poems. Thingamajig's music group is going to be backing him up while he's reading his poems for 16 hours, or 14 hours, I can't remember which. But it's a long time.
Yeah.
Whichever it is, from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. And then Annie Sprinkle and I are going to be doing the ecosexual bed piece, where we will be, talking to people from our bed, right, which will be down in the lobby of the museum from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. throughout the day. We might nap a little bit also. Some of my students, my undergraduate students from UC Santa Cruz, are going to be performing. Morgan True will be doing Dressing a Dresser and Undressing a Dresser. Dimitri and Heidi are going to be doing a piece about relationships. I mean, it's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful performance event that's going to be an endurance event all day long. John Zeibel's flying up from Los Angeles to perform. Duskin Drum will be doing something about penguins. I mean, it's all going to be happening. Kevin O'Connor is going to be doing a piece about Fukushima outside in these little kiddie pools. And I just think it's going to be a really exciting full day of performance art, and also a sort of exhibition of how art and philosophy work together to create these pieces, and how theory infiltrates art, because all of the people that are performing in this event, we're all pursuing PhDs in performance studies at UC Davis. So it's going to be something to enjoy. Yes.
Participate in.
To participate in, to come watch
and here at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History.
Something to experience at the Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz.
So I wanted to ask you if you would mind talking a little bit about your studies. You are a professor at UC Santa Cruz, and you are a PhD candidate at UC Davis in performance studies.
Yes.
What is that? What the heck is performance studies?
Well, one of the most cogent definitions of performance studies I've ever heard is that performance studies is the anthropology of performance. And so what we're doing is studying the boundaries and the substance of what makes up performance? Performance from, say, ritual that is practiced in any kind of society, tribal society. I don't know what the opposite of, or perhaps capitalistic society would be the opposite of tribal society. Performance is practiced in dance, theater, performance art, the performance of everyday life. These are all things that we're looking at and thinking about and trying to theorize and trying to understand in ever more deeper ways, using theory, right? So people are engaging these on all different kinds of theoretical levels. But at the same time, the performance program, the performance studies program that I'm in is it's a performance as research program. Actually, the whole program isn't. You can do a straight theoretical doctorate, but there's also the program. There's also the practice as research leg of this program. And then there's one other, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. But what I'm engaged in is the practice as research, where the people who are pursuing PhDs are actually also concurrently performing. They're also performing. They're performing their work and creating their work in various different ways. As am I. I mean, I have a very heavy-duty sort of practice component to my work, and I find it's really exciting to be doing the practice, to be doing the performing, and to also be theorizing at the same time. It's also incredibly, it's incredibly labor-intensive. Yeah.
You are listening to Elizabeth Stevens. She is talking about her work both as a professor and as a PhD candidate at UC Davis, and explaining what is performance studies. And it's interesting that you are bringing on May 26th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. all of these different candidates, and one of them is, again, Nita Little, who is an improv dancer who will be embodying the completion of her thesis.
Well, she'll be embodying the completion of her PhD thesis, which she sees as another sort of dance. It's the dance of ideas and the dance of words. And she studies phenomenology, and so she's always asking, where are the boundaries between these things? Where does our body really stop? Does our body really stop? Do our thoughts really stop, within our head? And of course, they don't. We all know this. But to be able to actually explain that in a way that other people can understand is it's quite a challenge. But it's a beautiful challenge, and we're all participating in these beautiful challenges up there at UC Davis. And the reason that I'm doing this is because when I was the chair of the art department at UC Santa Cruz, I hired Newton Harrison to help consult with me about a graduate program for the art department. And we ended up thinking that the best strategy would be to just start a PhD program focusing on environmental art. And so we wrote a program, or we began writing a program that would accomplish that task. But at the time, this was 4 years ago or 5 years ago, at the time we started doing this, there were a few hurdles that we had to try to address. And one of those was that no one in our department had a PhD. Therefore, I'm getting a PhD up at UC Davis. And then the other was that I think that the university had a hard time wrapping its head around artists getting PhDs, because artists are often really positioned as opposed to doing sort of certain kinds of intellectual work. And so I'm actually living through this process that disagrees with that view of the artist as someone who really is someone who acts and doesn't think as much, or who has a conflict with intellectual work, right? And I think, there are many artists who embody intellectualism or theory in their work. Someone like Martha Rossler or Alan Sekula, or, they're in any of the conceptual artists, Lawrence Weiner. There are many, many people, but the prominent sort of idea of an artist is someone who does practice, who makes things and really doesn't think too much about it, and feels. They're someone feelers. Yes, they're emotion. They're sort of these emotion animals as opposed to these thinking animals, and I don't think that's the way the world is anymore. And so it's a real challenge to figure out how to meld these two different components into a unitary, or a more unified kind of way of expressing creativity, but expressing it not only as, say, a material object or a way of performing, but also as a way of thinking and a theory, and how to kind of engage these things all together. It's really quite a challenge.
And I think using Helen and Newton Harrison's work as kind of an inspiration point, that they have, at least in my life, been the biggest advocates for artists, especially artists that want to deal with science. And let's say you're dealing in environmental studies. If you want to be an ecological artist, an environmental justice artist, you have to understand what the environment is and what are the ecological, you were talking about being an activist for mountaintop removal. Mountaintop removal, you need to, I know you know everything there is about mountaintop removal and what that does to the outlying areas, so that you as an activist can be fully informed and be able to possibly, argue with somebody that's standing on the other side, that's pro. There's plenty of land. We don't need to worry about, nature will take care of it, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's what, for me, that Helen and Newton have most brought to my life, is that if I want to be an artist engaged with scientists, I need to be able to grasp the science just as well as the scientists. I need to be able to ask the questions. But as an artist, I am freer to ask those questions. I don't have to deal with scientific methodology. I can work from the artist box, but that does not mean I can't not be as informed as the scientist.
Right. Well, I think also what the Harrisons, in terms of my work and the way that I engage the Harrisons is, Annie and I are not experts in science. We're not really, we don't have the kinds of, the volumes of knowledge that the Harrisons have about environmental, or ecological systems. But the beauty of thinking ecologically is that there are many, many different kinds of systems that one can bring to bear in a body of knowledge or a project or, whatever it is you're working with, right? And so my feeling is that what I really appreciate about the Harrisons is that they're really Renaissance artists. And their knowledge runs deep in each given field that they use to inform each other field that's within their practice. Annie and I do the same thing, but our fields of knowledge and expertise are different. And we come from slightly different backgrounds. So I think that...
Slightly.
Yeah. Yes. But, we're bringing another form of ecological thinking in. It's just different ecological systems that we engage than the Harrisons engage. But that's sort of the beauty of ecological thinking, is that, it really is looking at how different systems influence each other and how taking action in one system is going to affect another system, is going to affect another system. And I think that what's happened, especially in the university, but also in business and also in many other, fields that our society, is made up of, is that we've become such specialists that we just ignore every other field. And we feel that we only can speak about our particular field, or we should only stay within our particular field, and it's really not the way the world works. The world is an interconnected world. And, I've looked at different fields of knowledge like ecofeminism, different kinds of, spiritual things, and as well as hard, cold science, and as well as hard, cold, different kinds of theory. And so I think what I'm very interested in my theoretical musings is really how everything affects each other, and I'm looking at different ways of knowing, why is it that science is held up as the premier way of knowing, when in fact there are many, many bodies of knowledge that range from the scientific to the intuitive, to the artistic. And so I'm very engaged in really empowering artists to be thought of as serious thinkers. And that's why I think the PhD is important in the university, because frankly, I've been at UCSC for 17 years, and I don't think the arts are taken nearly as seriously as the sciences are. And why is that? Is it purely an economic situation, because the sciences get more money than the arts do? Or what? So that's something I'm very interested in looking at in my doctoral works. Yeah.
Do you have a title for your thesis that you're now writing? Do you have a theme?
I'm looking at environmental aesthetics.
Environmental aesthetics.
Environmental aesthetics. So right now I have a very boring title, which will, act as an umbrella to the kind of radical work that I'm going to be doing.
So would
It's not a boring title. It's just a very nondescript title.
So would
It's
your
kind of boring title.
I know you'll get it. You'll make it sexy.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, so the ecosexual bed piece that you'll be doing here, PEACE.
PEACE, the ecosexual bed piece with Annie, Sprinkle.
Yeah.
A la John and Yoko. Yeah.
John and Yoko. So you're going to be staying in bed for 14 to 16 hours,
Yes.
however long it is,
Yes.
here at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. Are you going to have clothes on?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're
okay.
gonna have white pajamas on. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Never fear.
That's right. Because
we're staging it very closely to the way that John and
Yeah,
Yoko
yeah.
staged it.
Yeah. And so, although it won't be like in a hotel room, it'll be in.
No, and I'm not gonna have a beard.
And you're not gonna have
Right.
a beard.
Yeah.
And Annie's not gonna have a big long black wig. Anyways, so obviously this is kind of fuel for the fire for your thesis work. Can you give us a glimpse of how the ecosexual bed piece fits into your thesis?
Well, I mean, part of what I feel is the problem, both in terms of thinking ecologically or in terms of ecological systems, but also in our real lived everyday life, is the way that we utilize time. And I think that as a whole, we are always in such a rush. We are always so connected to so many electronic devices. We are fragmented. It's very hard to, put together enough time to really think to think at the depth that I feel like I want to be thinking at this point in my life. And so in a way, the ecological, the ecosexual bed piece for me is like my declaration that I'm going to slow down. It's a version of time activism for me. Because I want to recuperate the ability to slow down and to think deep thoughts. And so that's going to be what's going to even allow me to do my thesis, as well as being something that will be incorporated into my thesis. I mean, I feel like the issue of time in my life is a very serious issue. And I think it is in many, many people's lives, because we're expected to do more with the same amount of time, because supposedly we have these devices that are making our lives more efficient and more easy and so on and so forth. But in fact, I find, living my life through email or Facebook or something like that is really quite alienating. And that there are all kinds of political problems with it, and that there are all kinds of, problems in terms of empowerment and in terms of real contact with people that I find, in my experience, have been more empowering. And the illusion of empowerment that many of these technological devices give us, I mean, on some levels it is more empowering perhaps to know 1 million people, but then on another level, I just feel that we're all running around, updating our CVs all the time, reaching out to friends that we may or may not know, that we're sort of ignoring the sort of local kinds of politics that we could really engage in and really do something about. For instance, Annie and I right now, we're mainly staying in San Francisco, and my neighbor down the street, who I've had a house there for 17 years, he's being foreclosed upon. And this is an African-American man who's in his 70s. He served in the military, and then he worked for the rest of his working life for the United States government and the Mint. And he was given a predatory loan. And he's losing a house that he's had since the 70s. And he's physically ill, and he's afraid to go have his illness checked out at the hospital because he's afraid if he leaves his house, the bank will come and take his house away. And this is a man that really gave his life for this country. This is an African-American man who did everything right, despite the extraordinary odds that African-American men face in this country. He did everything right, and he is being evicted from his house. So this is something that upset me a great deal, because I actually love this guy, right? I mean, he's just a great guy. He's always done things like if the meter maid was coming, he would come, wake us up in the morning so we wouldn't get a ticket. And, little things like that count over a period of time. And this is something that Facebook can never, ever, even approximate, right? So I started with the help of some other people, like David Solnit, this thing called Occupy Bernal, which is a big, it's sort of like Occupy, except that we're a single-issue group. And we're really fighting to keep our neighbors in their houses. And it turns out in my little neighborhood of Bernal Heights, there are 85 houses that are in foreclosure, and new houses are coming up every week. And when we first started, these first 85 houses, 84 of them were owned by people of color. So you start to see this pattern in lending practices, which is lending practices. And I don't know, like I didn't have the time to do this, but I really made the time to do this. And this really started me thinking about, that time and ecological practices are so important. And that slowing things down is really important. And kind of the more I start thinking about this, the more I realize the importance of slowing things down.
Getting into bed.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to be in bed for 14 hours. I just figured it out. It's only 14 hours, not 16.
As you were talking, you were mentally doing your math.
Right.
And so, Elizabeth Stevens, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, what a pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Nada Miljkovic. Always.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's just get one more time. Let's get all the information out.
Okay.
The first thing that's happening is May 23rd, you are bringing Reverend Billy Talon.
Reverend Billy Talon's coming to UCSC on May 23rd at 8:30 p.m. He's going to be performing at the Porter Dining Hall at Porter College. And then afterwards, he and his partner, Savitri D., are going to be doing a big question and answer period afterwards. So they're going to be incredible.
And it's Occupy the Earth and Justice.
Occupy Earth and Justice.
And then May 26th, here at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., you will be doing specifically an ecosexual bed piece.
But the overall show is called Listening to the Earth.
That's it. Listening to
the Earth. Temporalities. Okay, so Listening to the Earth is a group that I have at UC Davis of PhD students and colleagues who are working together to really do environmental performances. I mean, that's really what we do. And then Stephen Radcliffe is joining us, and his new book is called Temporality. So from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. on May 23rd, we'll be performing here at the Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz.
And Nada Little will be doing
the dissertation dance.
And then you've got the musical group Thingamajigs.
Oh, and they're just fantastic. Thingamajigs is a group of experimental musicians who really specialize in sort of ambient music, heavily influenced by artists like Pauline Oliveras, John Cage. It's very experimental, and quite wonderful musicians.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nada.
I can't wait to see your pieces.
Yay! Come on. And they're all free. They're all free.
Can't get better than that.
No.
Have a great day.
Oh, on our little how to do a wedding vow blackboard? Oh, yes. We, teacher Allison and Anna, vow to beat, whip, and smack all students until, these are not my words, okay? Until graduation, do us part. Wow. We now pronounce you married. Congratulations, you may now kiss. So I think that they're marrying their students.
until they're graduated.
That's terrifying, but yes, it's kind of terrifying.
So it's basically you can put in anything you want. It says I vow to verb person place until whatever works do us part.
Yes.
We now pronounce you married. Congratulations.
Exactly.
All right. My hand wasn't in the thing.
Come get married in the chapel.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just erase it when you're finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.